cover letter as an opportunity to tell the company what you can offer them. So it's not a chance to tell them what you want, what role you think is best. It's an opportunity where you've taken a vacancy, you've looked at that role, you've researched the company, and you can talk about your skills and competencies in relation to that vacancy, researching the company that you're applying for, and you're going to show in this cover letter that you've done your homework. Customize, yes, definitely customize a cover letter. So I'm not saying reinvent the wheel. I'm not saying every application that you do, you have to go and rewrite the whole cover letter, because obviously there are aspects, it's still you. If you are like, I'm a recruitment professional, I'm going to be applying for recruitment roles. So when I'm talking about my skills and my competencies, they're going to be related, but I'm applying to different organizations. So I'm going to look at that organization, and I'm going to adapt that cover letter slightly so that it's role specific, so that it's not just a generic cover letter or something that it looks like we Googled and got offline. So that goes to the don'ts, is don't use something generic. It mustn't look like a copy and paste thing. Again, like I said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you send out an application, but just tweak it to the role. It'll show the hiring manager and the recruiter that you've taken the energy into reading their job spec, into looking into the organization, and that you formulated your cover letter around that. Don't focus on what you want from the company. So, we discussed those non-negotiables, but don't say, I need to have flexible working hours where I work from home within a 5-kilometer radius from my house because, I need to be home by 4. Don't focus on that. We need to focus on what you can offer and how you can align your skills with what they need. Then, don't repeat everything on your CV. So the cover letter is not a summary of your CV at all. It's a completely different tool to give somebody an insight into the individual and into your competencies and skills. So I don't want to see a cover letter that says, I started my career off in 1995 and reverse going through every job. That's not what you want to do on a cover letter. And please, guys, grammar and spelling is very, very important. There are lots of tools out there nowadays that you can use in order to, spell check and grammar check and help you with sort of sentence structures and those type of things. Make use of them, because it's the first thing we're going to see of your application. And if there's spelling mistakes or grammatical errors, people are going to notice it. And then don't ramble. So, a cover letter should be, a few pages long. So not a few pages, a few paragraphs long. Sorry, not pages. So don't ramble. Get to the point. Don't do what I'm doing now, rambling. Get to the point. Be specific and focus on the job spec. So when you're putting together a cover letter, there are 3 sections that you're going to focus on: your introduction and your opening, your body, which is the juicy bit, that's going to focus on your skills and experience, and the closing, which is going to tell us, a call to action. So let's look at the cover letter. So, for a lot of us, when you start typing that cover letter, you're going to open your Word document. You've been staring at it for hours, and you keep on typing phrases like, I'd like to express my interests, or hi, my name is Jackie, or, and you never know how to start. So there's a few ways that you can look at to starting your cover letter. So, your opening should be quick. It should be a summary of who you are, where your strengths lie, and why you want to be considered for this role. So it has to be quick and punchy. It needs to convey your enthusiasm for the company. A quick summary of who you are. You want to lead with an impressive accomplishment. So you want to open it up where you're trying to grab this individual's attention. So lead with one of your accomplishments. You want to show your competencies, you want to show your skills and how you can be a cultural fit for this organization, and you want to also explain why you want this role. So yeah, why you want this role, and express passion. We want to be able to see, passion is a great driving factor. So we want to be able to see the passion and the motivation in this letter. So like I said, quick and punchy, but grabbing that individual's attention. It needs to be an attention grabber. And then also, I mentioned earlier values. So, and I'll mention values again. We're going to, again, values and competencies, but your values you're going to pick up through the job description. You're going to pick it up through doing research on your organization. And here you want to also, briefly be able to align where your values and their values, where you share mutual values. Sounds like a lot. You don't have to do all of those things in one opening paragraph. Keep that in mind. These are tips that you can use, one or two of them. You don't have to use every one of those tips, because then it's going to be much longer than a paragraph. I'm just trying to give you as much information as possible in order to put together a good opening statement. So the body of the section. So this section you can open with something like, what specifically could I bring to this role? So here it's going to show me that you've done your homework, you've done your research on the job, and I'm hammering on the fact. I know I've said it 3 times or 4 times, doing your research on the role and the organization, so that you can show what you can bring to this company that the next applicant can't. What skills do you have? What accomplishments do you have that you can bring to the organization? So you then follow this on with a few bullet points related on how your skills relate to their requirements. So if they are looking for somebody with 3 to 5 years recruitment experience, I would relate to that. So these are my skills. I can do XYZ with examples. So if I had to apply for a role within the financial services sector, I could say something like, I've got 5 years recruitment experience, with examples that, I've worked with the largest asset managers where I made XYZ placements, that type of thing. But you have to have direct evidence to support it. Don't make things up. You want to say, here I am, and this is the reasons why I fit your role. Do your research. What are the company's activities? What are the company's goals? And relate to them. And then how can you help them achieve these goals? So why would hiring you into this role make their lives easier? Because you can offer XYZ. I've got the skills that you need. This is the backup, because I've got sales awards and those type of things. So you want to relate how you are going to help them achieve the goals that they've set out in that job. The closing. So the closing is used so that's your last paragraph, is going to use to tie everything together. So you want to pull together your opening. This is who you were. These are your body, where you're going to address your skills and achievements and how they relate to the role. And then you're going to pull it all together at the end. You use this ending paragraph as well. So for people that aren't necessarily first-time job seekers, but say now there's a gap in your employment history, you can use this paragraph to address any gaps. So you can say, I relocated from abroad, and I spent 3 or 4 months settling in here, but now that we've settled, I spent this time doing research on the market, and now I'm ready to get into a full. So it addresses the 6-month gap in my resume or my CV, but it also lets people know where you are. So it's using this opportunity to give more information than what's on your CV. You want to show enthusiasm and express gratitude here. So thank you for taking this time to read this letter that I've written. Everyone's busy, so just taking that little few seconds to thank someone for reading it, and then ask for the next steps. So say, where to from here, or ask for the interview, ask for appointment. When can I get in touch with you to set up a meeting, or I'm available at this time. Please feel free to contact me should you wish to discuss my application or my CV. I've got another little clip for you guys on how to write the cover letter. So just an example on how to put it. I'll put that for you now.
This is my resume, and here's its best friend, the one-page cover letter, aka its wingman. Together they work wonders, because what the cover letter does is set up the resume by highlighting what makes you a great fit for the job. It shows your personality with three concise paragraphs that should be readable in around 10 seconds or less. So, how do you write a cover letter? Let me walk you through one, literally. Let's say you're applying for an engineer job. Don't forget your header: date, name, address, contact info, all that jazz. Kick it off with a greeting to address the hiring manager. If you can, find out their name. If you can't, stick with this. The attention getter. The opening paragraph. Introduce yourself and enthusiastically tell the employer why the job. Include why you're excited and how the job lines up with your career goals. Avoid sounding formulaic by adding keywords from the job posting. The middle paragraph. Dig into your most relevant experience and talk about the specific qualifications and skills that make you the perfect candidate. Oh, and feel free to pause and read when you need to. I've only got so long. Where was I? Right. Make connections between your previous accomplishments. Employers will likely have read your resume already, so avoid repeating the bullet points. Instead, deeply illustrate those highlights. To close the curtain, thank the employer. You can also make any clarifications, for example, any major gaps in employment history. Then, provide a complimentary close and signature that's friendly yet formal, followed by your name. Well, I think that's everything. Remember that the smallest moves are sometimes...
Summary. I can provide you with some other examples of cover letters, should you wish. I did it in the last session, so if you have other questions on how to put together a cover letter or want some more tips and tricks, you're more than welcome to get in touch with Elmi or Natasha, and I can provide you with a little bit more information on how to put together a cover letter, and also maybe some cool sites that you can go to that will help you build them that aren't necessarily so generic. Natasha.
Okay, we have a question here that says, I'm a computer science and IT major. I get great marks and I work hard. However, I feel like the industry is too big and broad to be satisfied with the skills I have. How do you address that problem, feeling like you could never know enough? Do you focus on one aspect, example, software development or cybersecurity? And while we have the internet to provide opportunities to learn new skills or language, one might never get the extra time to broaden their skill sets. How do you navigate?
That's a very big question. To are we relating it to, well, I'm going to relate it to a cover letter here. So, or this purpose. So I understand what you're saying, and I think the thing that you need to look at is look at the role. So when you are looking for a specific role or you're going on your job search, look at a certain position and do your homework there. So whether it's software development or cybersecurity, what is your interest? Where do your interests lie? So if it's in software development, you're going to get your job spec. You're going to do your homework on what the organization, or who the organization is, what they're looking for, and how you relate to it. And you're going to marry the two, and that's the point of this cover letter. Is not just to write something for the sake of writing it. It's to marry you to this role, so that you can show synergies. So you need to decide where your interests lie, whether it's cybersecurity or software development. Yes, I agree, the industry is very big, so you need to choose a specialization. And what are you good at? Your lot. What were your highest subjects? Were they your favorite subjects? Where are you going to focus your career? And then go from there. So that goes back to sort of that first or second slide, where you're going to do that self-assessment, see where your interests lie, What are your soft skills? What are your hard skills? And how are we going to match that to the job that you're looking for? I'm focusing on job specific cover letter, not a generic cover letter. So you need to try and marry the two. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, then I have one more that's from an anonymous attendee. Is expressing gratitude not archaic, sorry, I've just lost that, an archaic practice?
No, because we're human and we need to be nice to each other. So at the end of the day, it's still always good to thank somebody for their time, whether it's in a letter, cover letter, reading your CV, reading your email after an interview. I think a lot of the time we lose touch with people nowadays because we're so online and over email. We forget that, those small things make a huge difference. Just saying thank you makes a very big difference. I don't think it's archaic at all.
Before I read the next question, Jackie, I do have a request for someone would like to get an example or samples of the cover letter and resumes. Do you have that? We can attach it. I would like to let the members know that the session will be uploaded on YouTube on the Golden Key Southern Africa channel after the session. So Jackie, will that be available that we can add that to the presentation as well?
Yes, so I did provide in our last sessions a CV example, which I can provide as well. And then I'm happy to put together sort of an example of a cover letter to use. And, I can. I'll send it all to Elmi, which can be added to the session.
Okay.
Yeah, happy to.
Okay, then the question I have is, I would like to inquire about the personality traits that were mentioned. From my experience, I feel as if we were forced to be outspoken and outgoing in order to be a good fit for most roles in the industry. How would you address this if we're more introverted by nature?
It depends on what industry you're talking about, because I think, from my experience, I've been recruiting for quite a long time. And it depends on the role and the industry that you're in. So I think as well, in order to project yourself, you don't necessarily have to be, outspoken as such. And there are certain roles that don't require it. So, people in the finance industry or, more administrative type roles don't necessarily have to be outspoken. You can project yourself and present yourself with other skills that don't necessarily have to be, you don't have to be loud and to be heard, essentially.
Okay, do you want to continue with your presentation, or can I continue with questions?
A few more questions and then we can carry on. Yeah.
Okay, another question is, hi, I am a law student and many law recruitment programs first do online applications with questions like, why did you decide to apply? So how does one answer these type of questions properly? How long should explanations be?
So I would say for those type of things, it's about a paragraph. And why did you apply? It's a very good question. So there you're going to go back to your research. So why did I apply? So I applied for this role because I'm a law student that has an interest in X, Y, and Z, or I've seen that your firm, I can't find the word right now, specializes in that. And this is where I want my career to go. So if you are sending out random applications in the dark, I suppose it's more difficult to answer those questions. But if you've done your homework, go onto their website, see what they're doing, see what they're about. Are you genuinely interested in working for this organization? Then show it. And this is where you're going to show it. You're going to say, I'm interested in working with you because, so for me, for example, I have a background in psychology and psychometric assessments as well as recruitment. So, I see that those are the things that are important to you. They're part of your values. It takes me back to, my educational background as well as my experience, and I can marry those two and I can add value to your organization because I've had experience in psychometric assessment and I've had experience in recruitment, and I can offer that as, part of my skill set. So it's all about doing your homework and not just writing a random paragraph. Take time, read up about the company, and think about why you want to apply. So, why do you want to apply? You put it there. And it doesn't have to be long. A paragraph, couple of lines, but be honest, be real, and match it up with your skill set and your interests.
Okay, then I'm going to combine these two questions. One is asking, how does a CV change for individuals that have stopped working for a number of years due to health issues? And the other was, when does one disclose a mental health diagnosis such as anxiety and depression, especially if it has to date not affected your life greatly? Still work, still accomplish tasks. Some days maybe just a little slower. You might need a bit of time for appointments, like an hour in the morning, but otherwise you are functioning. So for the cover letter or CV, or rather during interviews, do you mention that?
I would rather do that during an interview at a later stage. You don't have to disclose that. As far as I know, according to our basic conditions of employment, it's not something you need to disclose in your interview process. Unless it's an illness that seriously hampers your job, then obviously you would have to. Well, you would disclose it because it's the right thing to do. But it's not something you have to disclose. If you're saying that your depression and anxiety is something that you manage very well, and you still do whatever you have to do, it's not necessarily something that needs to be disclosed in a cover letter or on a CV. With regards to the big gap due to illness, I've had this a lot. So some people just put in, so we noticed the gap. So I'll see if you weren't working between 2013 and 2015, but some people just put a little, 2013 to 2015 sabbatical or off due to health reasons to be discussed further during the interview. You can just put in there something on the lines of, everything's fine, I'm up and healthy again, everything's been, can go back to work. If it's something you want to disclose. But I mean, if there's a gap, you can just put it there. It's not a thing. These things happen. People get sick, they take time off, they come back to work, and everything's fine. So yeah, that you can put, but that you could put in your cover letter in that last little paragraph where you say that, you may notice that there's a 2-year gap in my employment history. I had this illness, but I have fully recovered now and I'm ready to get back into the job market. That's it. Short, sweet, to the point. You don't have to go into a hell of a lot of detail.
We do have a few more questions, but I will let you continue and we will go back to the questions in a moment.
All right. Okay, cool. So let's move on to, like the video said, the wingman of the cover letter, the CV. So your CV is essentially the document that's going to outline your academic and your professional history. So, and obviously we use this to apply for jobs. It's going to tell the hiring manager or this individual more about you, more about your experience, and more about your accomplishments. And this is longer. It's longer than the cover letter. So it's all of that detail. And obviously also outlining why you're the best fit for the role. So your CV's got to, if I'm applying for a job that needs somebody with 10 years recruitment experience, my CV is going to show somebody that I have 10 years recruitment experience. These are my specializations. These are my qualifications, and show them why I'm good for this job and why they want to give me the interview. A lot of time people ask, what's the difference between a CV and a resume? So basically, the CV is just, there's no length limit. So you can have a 15-page CV. A resume is a short summary. It's an executive summary, so usually not more than 1 or 2 pages. A CV details everything. So your work experience, a detailed academic history, whereas a resume is more of a summary of skills and a work experience. So it's going to be an executive summary. Your CV is a detailed look at things. And your resume is an overview. So it's going to give an individual. So when somebody asks for a 1 or 2 page resume, they literally want to be able to, in 5 minutes or 3 minutes, glance through this thing instead of going through a 15-page document. A CV is also sometimes used for your more things like your proposals or tenders. So you use it in your working life as well. Once you have a job, you still use your CV, because if you're working for an organization that's doing proposals and tenders, they're going to use this information as well. So moving on, 6 seconds. What does this mean? So a recent survey has shown that it takes a recruiter all of 6 seconds to look through a CV. 6 seconds, that's nothing. So you need to make sure that in that 6 seconds, you're showing the information that counts, so that when I'm glancing through that CV in 6 seconds, I put it onto the yes pile instead of the no pile. So what do we include in our CV to make sure that I or other recruiters, not me, take longer than 6 seconds to look at your CV? So what are the essentials? I'm talking about like the essentials to add on to your CV. First of all, your personal details. Your personal details are name, your title, so Mr. and Mrs., Doctor, and your contact details. Guys, please put this at the top of your CV. Make it on the first page. After your cover letter, I need contact details and personal information on the first page. I've seen CVs where I have to page through 10 pages to get somebody's phone number on the last page. You want it to be easily accessible. So if I've looked at a few things, I can find your phone number, pick up the phone and phone you and invite you for an interview. Front page, contact details. So here, the most important 2 things you need on your CV, contact details wise, is your cell phone number, a cell phone number that works, guys, and an email address. If you change your phone number, go update your CV and make sure it's the right phone number. And your email address, again, relevant email address. A little note on email addresses, make sure that, sometimes people have those funny email addresses from when we were teenagers. Change it to something professional-ish, or your name and your surname. That's it. If you have to put a number behind it, because there's a lot of Jackie Pillets out there, Jackie Pillet 147 is fine. And then location. So I've seen a trend where people put their full address on the CV. Not necessary. Just put your geographical location. So I want to know your suburb and your province. I want to know you're in Pretoria and Gauteng, because if my client's in Pretoria, they want somebody that lives in Pretoria, then I'm like, great, you don't have to travel far. But we don't need your full address. The brief personal statement or personal profile, this is optional. If you've written the cover letter, the personal profile isn't necessary as such, but you can put it in, just a little paragraph on the top of your CV. That it's just a statement on your career objectives. I'm Jackie. I'm looking for recruitment specialist role. My career objectives, and then your employment history. Obviously, this is the very, very important part of your CV. It needs to be in reverse chronological order. So your most recent role first, because I want to see your most recent experience, and then go back to your least, your later experience. What to put in that job description thing for me? I need a job title, so recruitment specialist. I work for CSG. A short role description. So it's literally just putting in a little bit on what the role is about, the dates that you've worked. So when did you start? When did you end? Or you started and you're still there. And then your bulleted responsibilities. So in your CV, go into detail. Go into detail for me. If somebody wants a shorter CV, they'll ask you for it. But in general, recruiters and hiring managers want detail. We want to see what you've done in relation to the role. Here you can also, if you're applying for a specific role, and you look at the job description and you see that perhaps there's something in the job description that's listed that you do on your daily basis, but you forgot to put in your CV. Put it in your CV. Don't obviously copy and paste from the job description, but put it in your CV. Note, read through your job description, read through what you've listed on your CV as your daily duties, and see that it matches up. Obviously, again, be honest, only what you really can do, and then list your achievements. We love to see achievements. We love to see that where you've been successful, where you have And achievement doesn't have to be somewhere where you've won an award. It can just be somewhere where you've added value in your department, where you've shortened the process, where, something used to take 5 days, you've got it down to 2 days by automating it, or, putting together an Excel spreadsheet and doing a macro. It seems like a little thing, but it's important. It also shows your skills. And then also references. You don't have to add references on your CV, but you can. You can say references, on request. That's fine as well. And then also just make sure that you have your references permission to use their details. What else to include? Obviously, is your education. We want to see what qualifications you have, and again, I want the detail here. I want to see what is the qualification's name, where did you get the qualification, and when did you complete the qualification? So again, in reverse chronological order. So if you have your master's degree, put that first, then your honors degree, then your undergraduate. Don't immediately assume because you have your master's degree, people know that you've done your bachelor's. So list them all for us with your majors, of all of the qualifications that you have received. Additional information that you can put in a CV that beefs it up, that makes it look good, would be any awards. So whether these be academic or professional, if you were employee of the month, or best candidate attorney for the quarter or something like that. Your professional certifications. So anything that's not necessarily a degree, but a professional certification you want to put in there. A professional affiliation. So I want to see that you're a Golden Key Society member, and tell people what it is. Boast. Your CV is an opportunity for you to boast about your experience and show me why you're the best. So use this opportunity to boast. I'm a Golden Key member. This is what it means. It's important. It's good. Any publications, any training you've been on that you feel might be relevant, and then software or computer skills. So, if you are an expert, put in there your Excel, you can do macros, if there are industry-specific software, so in finance, if you can work on Pastel or Sage or those type of things, put it in there. Even if, it was during your articles and, you've got exposure to something, mention it, because it's certain roles, certain roles or certain organizations look for certain software packages. So, if it's listed on your CV, then it's more likely that I'll give you a call because, oh, hey, you've been exposed to the software package and you've got the right degree. Great, going to give you a call. And then for students or first-time job seekers, so when you don't necessarily have the very long job descriptions that you can add in, there are things you can add into your CV to also make you stand out. So volunteer experience. So if you have, or your VAC work or that type of thing, put it on your CV. We want to see it. So, if you've volunteered during your holidays or, done any sort of vacation work, put it on there. Relevant hobbies and interests. So if you're in the financial field and, you have a trading thing that you do on the side, list it there. It's going to show that you have an interest in your industry. Any projects that you've worked on. So, during university, if there were projects that you were involved with, so say now, software developing, or those type of things, list it, show us. Freelance work, and then of course, academic achievements are very, very important as well.
Okay. Jackie, while we were with the cover letter, I think I should ask some of these questions. We have a few regarding the cover letter. Sekafat asks, you have mentioned that in your cover letter, one should mention why you are different from another applicant. As a physics student and applying for a graduate physics job, how can I be unique in this case, since most of the applicants will be physicists? So if you can...
So it's not necessarily showing that or writing there, I'm unique because of X, Y, Z. But, if you're a physics student, you're applying for a certain job within a certain organization, right? So it's going back to, doing the homework and doing the research. What's going to show that you're different is that you've actually gone onto the company's website. You've seen, what are their extra their social responsibilities, or what are the organization's values, and related that back to you. You've gone and looked at the job description and seen that they're looking for somebody that has, leadership skills or good time management skills, and then you take that information and you relate it back to your skills, so and make it relevant. So I can show you that you're looking for somebody that has good time management skills. You might be a university student, but you can then relate it to a project that you had to do. So you were running a project. This was the close timeline. How did you manage to close that project off and still get it in time? It's showing time management skills and then relating it back to the job description. How that makes you unique and stand out is that you've taken the time and done the homework, where other people are just going to do a generic job description or a generic letter, or not even do a letter and just send their CV. That's what's going to make you stand out and make you different.
Okay, then I have a question that's asking, isn't it weird or even borderline creepy to call the recruiter by name in your cover letter?
No, because it does feel weird. It sounds weird, but go onto LinkedIn. So if you've done the research and you've seen either on LinkedIn or on the job advert, a lot of the time the recruiter will put their name. So with the larger organizations, it will say, full queries, contact Jackie Pillay, and they'll give an email address. Then, they've put their information there. They've put their name there. So if their name is on the job ad, then the information's there. It's not creepy. You're attentive. You've noticed that the individual's name is there. It wouldn't be weird at all.
Next question. How are we able to do research on the specific jobs we're applying for when most of the adverts are generated by recruitment agencies?
So even if it is generated by a recruiter, a lot of the time they have in the job description, you'll see it'll have the values. Then you might not necessarily say, I want to apply to XYZ company, but you'll read the ad. It'll say, I am recruiting for an organization in the oil and gas industry that specializes in this, and you'll then be able to say that, I have experience in oil and gas, and my specialization area is this. So without necessarily knowing the exact company, you can still relate your experience to it. And in the job itself, there should be competencies. So if they put the job description there, a certain point will say, these are the competencies that the individual or that the organization is looking for, and then you'll go match your competencies to those competencies. So, you'll find your synergies there.
Then I have a question. If you are applying for a part-time job to make ends meet while being a student, what should you say as to the reason you are interested in that position, specifically for au pairing, for example?
So, in that sense, I think, again, be honest. So you're a student, and au pairs, for those type of roles, I think people understand that it's not necessarily it is a part-time role. It's not a full-time role. So people understand that it is obviously a little bit different. So you would then just express your interest, because why do you want to look after kids? Because you're good at it. You enjoy it. Maybe you're studying psychology or studying early childhood development or something like that, and then related to that, even if you're studying something completely different, you can honestly just say, I'm a student, I'm looking for a part-time role. It shows a little bit of responsibility that you're willing to, earn a little bit of money while you're studying.
Okay, then Nicole asks, for someone looking to change career paths in their late 20s and lacking practical experience in the new industry, how does one address this in the cover letter?
Yeah, I've been asked this before as well. So I think we're going to look at that in the next session as well, where it's looking at keywords and, you know, if you're, it's tough. Try and relate. So if you think of that little video that we watched earlier where it said, you know, try and relate certain things. So if you've worked in the retail industry, you'll have customer service experience. So maybe you want to change your career. Look at the skills that you've gained and how you can cross-sell them. You know, the some sort of synergy. So you've gained leadership skills here. Maybe they need you've managed a team in a retail environment. Maybe you can manage a team in a different environment. So you're going to try and address it in that sense and trying to use the skills that you have to relate it to the job that you're applying for.
Then I have a question that asks, what are your thoughts on personally submitting your CV or handing it in at the organization if you haven't been contacted after applying? Is it considered desperate or passionate?
Like a hard copy, we don't really do that anymore. Save the trees. I'd rather them do a little bit more homework and try and find the person's email address and send it to them directly, than actually going to hand in a hard copy. Yeah, I don't like the word desperate, so don't use that. I'd rather go for passionate. But yeah, maybe not a hard copy, but try and then do a little bit more homework. Try and find the hiring manager, guys. If if you're that passionate and you know who the organization is, instead of going for the recruiter, try and find out who the hiring manager is. Who does this role report into? Find that individual and send your CV to them.
I'm going to ask you 2 more questions before you can continue, and then we'll go back to the questions a little later. When writing,
I literally have like 1 slide left. So.
Is it? Do you want to rather complete it and then we can go to?
I've got 1 slide left, and then we can carry on with the questions.
Okay, let's do that. You can complete, and then we'll resume to the Q&A after.
All right. It's just literally on the format. So we've discussed on what to include. And then a lot of people also ask how your CV should look. There's no specific design. There's no specific format that will make your CV better or look better. There are a few websites, I forget their names now, that will help you design or look at your CV to be a little bit more simple. So don't be too busy or too frilly. It's go for a thing that's easy to read. And the reason I say that is because a lot of organizations use the ATS system, so the talent system. So if it's easier to read and you've highlighted your keywords, when it's pulled into that system, when the recruiter does a search, it's going to be able to pull out your information easier than if it's too busy and too many pictures. So try to, not too busy, simple font, easy to read, a size 11 font is great. It's easy. You can send a PDF copy. That's usually the easiest. Most of your ATS systems will accept a PDF copy. Certificates to send or not. It depends on the role. So if sometimes people will list, they want to see your qualifications and your transcripts. Then if it's listed, send them. Again, your online portals might ask for them and then submit them. But if you're just submitting to a recruiter, when they want your qualifications, you can send them through. Because sometimes if your attachment is too big, it might get bounced by the organization server. And then a photo, yes or no, unless specifically asked for, I'd say no, purely because your idea of a great photo and somebody else's idea of a great photo is not necessarily always the same. If you do want to make sure it's professional, just sort of head and shoulders, make sure there's a plain background. Don't have a photo where somebody else is with you and you've cropped them out, or you're at a party and you've cropped out the beer glass in your hand or something like that. If you do want to add a photo, or if somebody asks for a photo, or if you're looking for that photo for your LinkedIn page, head and shoulders, plain background. It doesn't need to be a professional photo, but just look, neat and tidy, and not too flashy. That's it, Natasha. We can carry on with questions.
Okay, great. So I will get now to, we have a question from Liesel. Some of it I might be able to assist you with. She asks, where can the videos posted in the presentation be found? I just want to mention to everyone online that we will be uploading the session on YouTube. So if you search for the Golden Key Southern Africa channel, you will be able to find Jackie Pillay. You can search for the webinars. We've had a previous career series with Jackie. This is the second session that we're having now. So you can have a look at the previous sessions as well. But I think Liesel is specifically asking for the videos that you played during the presentation.
Those cute little videos.
Yes.
What I'll do is with the cover letter example and the CV example, I can send you the links to those videos. I got them from the Indeed site. In no way something that I made. I just found them. So I can send you the links. They were on YouTube as well. So I'll just send them to you. And then, if you want them, you can send them to me.
Okay, so if Liesel can hear me, it will be included with the presentation when it is loaded on YouTube. Then she asks, are companies open to remote IT opportunities, especially in light of COVID? And is there...
I think...
Yes, continue. Go ahead.
With remote opportunities, I think COVID and the global pandemic have changed a lot of organizations. 6 months ago, had you asked me that question, it would have been, probably not. But now, probably yes. Especially IT. My husband's in IT. He works remotely because it is a role that you can do not in the office. Obviously, dependent on the organization. But I think a lot more companies are open to remote work now, as compared to before.
Is there a negative connotation to having a gap on your CV?
No, if you can justify it, I don't think so, unless you spent those 18 months.
I'm actually going to combine that with another question that we received that said, from Anonymous, that says, hello, I'm likely to have a large experience gap due to years of drug use. I'm a recovered addict. How do I honestly disclose that without harming my chances of employment, considering what people think of drug addicts?
Funnily enough, I've actually experienced that too. We have actually had somebody that did disclose it to us. It's not something that I would put in a CV, because in a CV you can just be screened away. It's something I would discuss in an interview session. So I would, leave it blank, leave the gap there. Focus on your most recent employment and how build your cover letter on how your skills relate to the job, and then discuss that during the interview. Because if you can obviously have an open discussion, we are all human, we all make mistakes, we all have something.
Yes.
So these things just make us stronger and build character. And if you can show that it's something that's stronger and build character, and that's what this individual did to us. They said, this is it, this is my past, that's what happened, XYZ, I was in rehab, and now I've managed to hold down a job for 3 years. You could phone my references, they were great. It is what it is. Fine, we move on. You can't be held ransom for your past forever.
Then I have a question that asks, it's from Liesel as well, that says, what research do companies and recruiters do on applicants?
It depends on how busy the recruiter is. I don't necessarily have a lot of time to do a lot of research on all of my applicants, but people will look at your socials. So dependent on the type of role as well. So people will look at your socials. If there's things that you don't want people to see, don't put it on Instagram or make your account private. Because if I Google, I might just Google your name. If I Google the name and I go into images and see what comes up. So yeah, make sure what you're tagged in is appropriate. You know, do whatever you want on your social media. Just make it private if you don't want people to see it. But I don't necessarily go and Google search every candidate that I'm looking for and go look at their Facebook or their Instagram or that type of thing. I'd probably go look at your LinkedIn, to be very honest, because that's relevant for me. So if I'm looking for a candidate, the research I'm going to do is go look at your LinkedIn and your CV and yeah, job references.
Okay, then Priska asks, when writing the experience and employment part in the CV, do you write it in bullet form or in a paragraph form?
Bullet, please, bullet. Bullet form, it's easier to read. It's more to the point. And again, remember your online, the portals. Sorry, it's late at night. My brain is freezing up now. So your portals are going to pull those things through. And sometimes if you pull it through in a paragraph, it goes into, you know, text form, then it becomes this big block, and it's hard for me to decipher that information. So do it in a bullet form, paragraph form, no, not paragraph form, just a bullet form, bullet point list, your duties, please.
Nomosanto asks, if the recruiter is supposed to go through my CV in just 6 seconds, how will a 15-page CV help?
So it's not that we are supposed to go through your CV in 6 seconds, it's that it happens. So when somebody puts out a job ad, keep in mind that on average, they'll probably get 250 responses for that job application. There is no way that somebody can spend 15 minutes on a per CV. So that's what I'm saying. You need to make sure the information that I see in the beginning is relevant, because in that few minutes or seconds that I take to open up a CV, I want to see your qualifications and your work history at a glance. So I want to be able to see when I open Jackie's CV, it's going to be contact details, my degrees, and then my work history. So that if I scan through a CV, I've been doing it for a very long time, I can see honest degree, recruitment, and I can sort of see that I have 10 years experience, and then I'll go, yes, you do. It's a short screening. So a short screening, I'll put it to the yes file, and then I'll go through it in more detail. When I give you a call and we go through your CV, I want that long CV where it lists your duties in detail so that I can fully understand what it is that you do.
Okay. Anonymous asks here, when applying for jobs overseas, where should one place the ability to work in the country without the hiring team missing this crucial piece of information?
Page 1. You're going to put it in with your personal details. So sort of there by your location, or you can put citizenship on a CV as well. Actually, that's something I forgot is your citizenship. So in there, you're going to have sort of name and surname, cell phone number, email address, location, eligibility to work, and then you can put it in there. So in that first or second page, you want it on the top. So if it's something that's relevant to the job and you want somebody to see it, put it at the top. Put it on the first page.
Then
I don't want to scroll down to the last page to see that.
Another anonymous member asks, do you include a brief summary of your theses or research papers, especially at master's level, or just the title?
I would say maybe just the titles, because unless it's relevant to the role. So if you can relate to the role, you can do a brief summary. But I've seen the CVs that just have the titles. That's fine.
Okay, then I think it's Anathea that asks, I'm a little confused about what recruiters want in terms of CV. I've seen a lot of advice that a CV should only be 2 pages, needs to be eye-catching and brief. However, this is saying we should be more detailed. Also, how important is the look of the CV? I've seen CVs that look graphic designed with pictures and colors that look nice, but are very brief. Is the old-fashioned version of the CV on a Word document still acceptable?
So if you are a graphic designer or if you are in the creative space, by all means do a CV that way, because then your CV is actually sort of part of your portfolio. If you are in finance, the old-fashioned or the normal CV that we all use is perfectly acceptable. If somebody wants a short CV, they're gonna note it in their job description or in their request. So they're gonna say, please only send a 2-page CV. The rest of the time, people want the detail, because we can all. The reason I say that, and I'm not saying bore people with a 15-page CV. I use 15 pages as an example. You know, an average CV is probably about 4 or 5 pages long. You know, in general. So, you know, the reason I want it is job descriptions are not, or not just job descriptions, job titles are not always the same. And sometimes they're misleading. So a recruiter can be a recruiter, a recruitment consultant, a talent acquisition specialist, an HR consultant. So there's a lot of things. But if I list in my duties what it is that I do, somebody reading my CV will be able to relate that to the role, regardless of the title. And that's why I want to see your duties in the CV, and I want to see the detail in the duties, is so that regardless of the title that you have, because some organization might call the title something funny, that I can see in your duties what it is that you did, and if that's the same as what my client is looking for. Because my client might have a funny title that is something random, but then I go to the job description and I look on keywords in the job description that are going to relate to the keywords in your job description, and that's how I'm going to find you.
Then I'm going to ask you, Francois was asking, how would you, I would like to know how you align your recent skills to a higher position in a different organization. Mm-hmm. So if you're applying for a position in a different organization, how?
Then I'm applying for a managerial role.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yes.
Well, Francois, you're still going to look for synergies. So you're going to read your job description. There's obviously going to be a role that you're applying for. There's going to be reasons why you're suitable for that role. So you might have 10 years experience. You might have managed a small team. They're looking, you know, you're going to, there has to be a reason why you fit the job. And that's why you're applying for it. If you can't match yourself to this job at all, how am I going to match you to that job? So you need to find ways that you can relate what you do to that. So there's going to be, so if I'm looking for somebody that's a little bit of a higher role, maybe like you have 10 years experience, use that 10 years experience, and in this 10 years experience I've gained this, and knowledge in that, and knowledge in this system, and etc. So just relate it in that way. Sorry, I hope I've answered that well.
I think you have. Then Leandi asks, if you had a job but were let go because it were evident that you were not meant for the job and really did not like it, but it was a mutual decision between the employer and you, how can you put it on your CV as to why you no longer work there?
Why you left? Just say a mutual separation. That's it. And then you can go into more detail during your interview. Guys, also remember, you don't have to put reasons for leaving on your CV. So you don't have to list the reason for leaving on your CV. You can discuss that during the interview. And then during your interview, say, you know, I joined this organization, but it really wasn't a fit for me. And it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon because it's like when you start dating somebody. When you see them at first, you love them, and then after a few months, you're like, not so much. And it's the same thing. So then just say, I joined this organization, but you know, it wasn't necessarily what I was looking for. I'm specialized in this, and they do that. Or the role wasn't exactly what was discussed. So, I mean, I've even had that in my career where I moved to a different organization, and the role wasn't exactly what was on paper. And you can say that it's not exactly where I wanted my career to go, and it's not a role that was going to help me achieve my career objectives at the end of the day. So if you'd stayed in that role, it wasn't going to get you to where you want to be.
Okay, I do want to mention the attendees online that we have enough questions at the moment. We're going to try and answer all of them before closing the session. So at this point, the Q&A would have come to an end. I do want to ask, Oslina asks, where does one place the references for the CV? Is there a specific placement section that one should add the references?
No, most people do at the bottom of the CV. So on your last page, after everything, so your CV is normally your personal details, your education, your work history, and then right at the bottom the references. So the last page is fine.
Okay, I'm going to combine two because it's very similar. The one is asking if there's what about if there is a 10-year gap but in your CV? Do you have chances to be considered for the job, and how do you proceed in this case with your CV? And the other question is, due to being underprivileged, one was only able to acquire a university degree at 40 and has no work experience at all. So how would you address that in the cover letter?
So the gap, again, just keep it brief. You don't have to go into too much detail and tell people your whole life story. Just, give a brief thing of, you will notice there's a gap on my CV, XYZ, be brief, be a little bit, keep it brief, not too much detail, and then say, but I can discuss this further in an interview if it is something that's, they want to discuss. With regards to the other question, approach it as a first-time job seeker. The thing is, the fact that you've gone through the effort, at 40, and you've gotten a degree, shows a lot of perseverance. So that's one of the skills or the strengths that you can list in your cover letter, and use that. Tell your story. So you use the cover letter to tell a little bit of your story. Don't the whole thing, but highlight the achievement that, I come from this background, I couldn't do it, but I managed to, at the age of 40, finish my degree, and now I want to go into this career. So, tell a story, use your story to catch someone's attention. That's why the cover letter is there to grab people's attention.
Then Jackie, on the question that was asked with handing in the CV personally, the member has asked us, she says, I'm not sure, sorry, it's an anonymous attendee. The question earlier with regards to handing in the CV was more about going for an interview if you weren't invited for it. Like, can you sell yourself better in person than on paper? Is that frowned upon or encouraged?
Well, you can't go for an interview if you haven't been invited for one. So probably frowned upon. Yeah, so I could say, try and reach out and, like I said, get to the hiring manager or get your CV instead of through a portal. But, it's going to be very difficult for you to get to an interview without having been invited to one. And it's, I'm going to be blunt, but it might be seen as a little disrespectful, because you can't just pitch up at an organization and say, you have to see me for this role, because you don't know what that hiring manager is busy doing. They might have meetings, and now you're there, so they're probably going to feel obligated to meet with you. So it might, don't know.
What advice would you give to someone who doesn't have previous experience in the particular field they are applying for to make their CV more attractive as opposed to someone who has experience?
So if you're looking, maybe look at the, so I'm going to look at it like a first-time job seeker. So your qualifications, look at your qualifications. Maybe you have academic achievements. Maybe there's some volunteer work or vacation work that you've done that you can highlight. I have a client in the financial services industry that likes to bring on board grads for a certain role. what they like to see in their CV, they like high achievers, obviously, so people with a certain GPA, but beyond the GPA, what they want to see is what you did during university. So did you volunteer? Did you play sport? Maybe you were a captain in a, for a sports team, what did you do during your vacations? Did you, work companies, all of that stuff. So use that information to build your CV if you don't necessarily have the working experience in that field.
Okay. Then I have a question, but I think you have touched on this, where it says, I've recently left a role after 3 months because of the hours that were very crazy, working until midnight a.m. daily. How do I explain that without coming across as not resilient and lazy?
So there's a difference between lazy and realistic. So, again, we're all human. And if you speak to an individual, speak to an individual and say, it was too much. I've had candidates that say, working every weekend, working until 10 o'clock every night is not conducive. You need a little bit of balance. Don't get me wrong. I am willing to put in extra hours, and I'll always work overtime to achieve my deadlines. But doing it 7 days a week is not sustainable. It's something that you're going to have a discussion about, and most people will understand, because most of us will think that it's a little unrealistic. And if you're sitting in an organization that doesn't think it's unrealistic, and those are their expectations, it's probably not the job that you want, because you're going to end up in the same situation. So if you're in an interview where the expectation is to work 12 hours, 7 days a week, and you've just come from that, walk out, because you're gonna be unhappy in a month's time, because it's exactly the same environment that you're leaving.
Then I have, if I've applied for several jobs and not heard back from the employers, may I contact them to ask them why I was not invited for an interview? Then I have another question that's also related that asks, do organizations email the applicants if they are not successful to let them know that they are rejected?
So most people will try. We get incredibly large volumes, and organizations get incredibly large volumes of applications. That's why I'm giving you guys these tips to make your application stand out, because there is a lot. There's a lot. So if you haven't heard back, most companies will have a little disclaimer at the bottom of their application that says, if you haven't heard from us within 2 weeks, please consider your CV unsuccessful. So if you do phone them, they're probably just going to tell you that you weren't shortlisted. What was the other one? Oh, the email. Yes, a lot of people will email. So it'll probably be a system-generated email that if they'll shortlist people. If you haven't been shortlisted, carry on. Just carry on applying. Make sure the roles that you apply for are relevant, and that will increase your chances of being invited for an interview. But carry on applying. Don't take the no. Just file that one and apply for the next role. So there's a lot of job applicants. So you just need to keep on applying. Don't let it get you down.
On that, Jackie, how long after submitting their CV should they follow up? Because many of the companies do say that they'll be contacted within a certain period. So how long after they've submitted their CV should they wait to hear back? And can they ask the organization why they were considered unsuitable?
So if you've contacted an organization directly and you have the contact details of the individual, then by all means, phone them. I would say give it about a week, because there are screening processes. There's a lot of background stuff that goes on. So if you've submitted your application, somebody has reached out to you, give it about a week and then reach out and follow up. By all means, drop a mail. There's no harm in that. You can ask why you were unsuccessful. You have all the right to ask why you were unsuccessful. Whether they're going to answer you is different question. Hopefully they do. From a recruiter side, and I'm an external recruiter, so I recruit for clients. I have some clients that just say, no, this person was unsuccessful, and they don't give details. And some people go into detail, whether they've changed their role a little bit, and there's one specific thing they're looking for, and then we'll give you that feedback. So if I, as a recruiter, have that information, I'll give it to you, because I see it as, constructive feedback that you can use, whether it's from an interview or from your experience or those type of things. I'll give you the feedback where I can. But if I'm not getting that feedback from an organization, I can't give it to you. And they're also not obligated to tell you why you're not successful. But you can ask, because it will help, your future application.
Simpiwe actually asks, with regards to the feedback, what do you say, if anything, when a company takes you through a whole year recruitment process, and at the last round, they say there are no roles for your qualification on the last round?
There are words that I would say to them that I can't say. No, I'm joking. That's actually just disrespectful on the organization's part. I'm very sorry that you've been through that. If you've been through that, I don't know how to answer that question for you, because that's obviously, someone's process. I don't know who the company is, or why they did that to you. I've been through recruitment processes myself that have been, 6 to 8 months long, to then be, unsuccessful. It's exhausting, because you put a lot into a job application, and we'll go through that in the next sessions. So, in the next sessions, we are going to look at, how we are applying for roles, how to get your CV noticed on the different portals, and then how to handle your job interviews as such. So, we're going to touch on those things in the next sessions. But, all I can say to that question is, I'm very sorry that you went through that. It's difficult for me to answer that, because I don't know who the organization is, and I don't know that process. It's just rude on their part to drag out a process for that long, and then, not give you feedback, or
Absolutely.
say there's nothing to your qualification.
Then Jackie, as a student, should one include their matric achievements and reports in the CV, or rather not include it?
Yes, as a student, yes, include them. So, for me, that's been working for more than 2 years. Then, it might not be relevant. But if you have between, like, say, 2 and 5 years, you can still put it on there. I would say, yeah, as a student, I would like to see those academic achievements. So if you got like a couple of A's in the trick, I want to see that. If you are we're on student councils or things like that, yes, I would put them on the CV as a student. Definitely.
We have the last two questions. Charlotte asks, I'm a translator. When a recruiter asks for transcripts of my work and I submit them, am I not breaching confidentiality?
Can you make them anonymous in a certain way? Maybe, unless the client that you're transcribing for is, you have some sort of confidentiality agreement with them. Or I would say, if there is something, if you could just sort of anonymize it a little bit, so take out any sort of company names, so or client names or product names or that type of thing, and you can say to the recruiter, here it is. You can either black it out or just say the company or the product, and tell them, unfortunately, I can't give you all of the details because it's, confidentiality issues. And if they don't understand that, then yeah, they will understand it. They will understand it. You can just sort of make it a little bit more anonymous to respect your client's confidentiality.
Okay. The last question is, considering students, would you encourage one to apply for the job before they finish their degree, or in their last year, or after they've completed it, graduation, and have their certificate at hand?
If you've written your final exams and you have your results, go for it. The actual certificate, I think, we'll get. I have done a lot of grad recruitment. I've worked with a lot of clients that work with grads. There's nothing wrong with starting to look in October, November already. Maybe not in June because I can't place you until for 6 months. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Starting to look while you're still in your final semester. So just before your end exams, I've had a lot of grads that approach us around about October, November, just before exams start, to start looking to either start work, December or January.
Well, with that, now we have come to the end. So I just want to say thank you to Jackie and to everyone for being online. The YouTube video will be posted on the Golden Key Southern Africa YouTube channel. And we will be joining Jackie next week, Wednesday, for the second part of the career.